Moose, you can stay on. I'm gonna go ahead and bring on as well Hummus Hero. Credit to him, he's calling in. So let's we're gonna give him a fair shake, and then
who I want to hear. You know who I want to hear, John? I want to hear Steven Cherry Blossom calling because he's always got so much to say about Michigan stuff. So come on, don't be a keyboard warrior. Come on in, Steven.
That would be great. But we're gonna give Hummus the opportunity to give his take on things. So, Hummus, thank you very much for calling in. What's your take on the news today?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. And I wasn't trying to make personal attacks, John. When I said that, I probably shouldn't have said that you're acting childish. It's just that you seemed a little bit gleeful. You seemed a little bit joyous over it.
And, correct.
And honestly, from an Ohio State perspective, like, I don't think any of us really thought that Alford was this amazing guy. I mean, yeah, he was a decent recruiter. I'm not denying that. But
thank you for not denying that, because some others here did not do that.
Yeah, no, he's a decent recruiter. Yeah. But the thing is that you got to remember also is that it's Ohio State. Like, a lot of the recruits, it's the brand, it's everything that comes along with it, the tradition of running backs and all that stuff. So I don't think it's the hardest place, and I don't think it's the hardest position coach to be a pretty good recruiter at Ohio State. I think what Ryan Day's done with quarterbacks to kind of, in the past 5, 6, 7 years has been much more impressive. I think that was really Ryan Day, not Corey Dennis. But at any rate,
I would agree with you with. I'm going to stop you just for a second. I would agree with you with Hartline. I'm going to push back on the running backs, and and I think you know where I'm going with this. Ryan Day's offense is predicated on a majority pass attack. I do believe Chip Kelly's coming in to moderate that, actually, but his offense has been predicated on more of a, I'd call it like a pseudo hybrid air raid. I don't call it a full air raid, but it's definitely more on the passing, and requires elite 5-star or 4-star wide receivers. So Hartline, yes, but running, I mean, let's face it, Travion did have a great season his first year. His second year, he got injured. Can't blame him for that one. Third year, he did, I'd say, fairly well. But overall, Ohio State is, I think you would agree, right, that it's known more for the wide receiver talent and quarterback talent than the running game. Or am I off base there?
Well, no, that's a good analysis in the past 3 to 4 years. But what you got to remember is prior to 2020. And really even in 2020, because Fields was running a decent amount there, and we had Trey Sermon, who was putting up massive numbers. I know you don't look at it because it was a shortened season. But really, when Henderson was being recruited, when they were selling it to him, look at what they were pointing at. They were pointing out J.K. Dobbins in 2019, who ran for $2K. You know what I mean? And then prior to that, during the Urban Meyer era, the entire time, it was, if anything, it was more run heavy than pass. It was a balanced attack, but I mean, I agree. You had Ezekiel, you had really good running game virtually the whole time. So, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not devaluing Travion Henderson. That's probably the single best recruit that Alford ever landed, because, like you're saying, he did coach Ezekiel for 1 year, but he didn't recruit Ezekiel.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he was already there, and he was already established. He found Mayan Williams, but Mayan Williams was an in-state guy who, Ohio State's offering you, and you're a 3-star. Of course you're going to do it. But one of my big things, and one of my last comments in the chat that I was pointing out, is that Alford failed to get Jordan Marshall, who Mike Hart did get.
That's a good point.
He failed.
That is a good point.
So, I mean, that was a big thing. And, anytime an in-state, an elite running back in-state turns down Ohio State, that doesn't look good, and that might be, once again, I'm not placing all the blame on Alford, because like you pointed out when I first got in here, that is very true. Recruits are recruited to a school, they're recruited by coaches, but they're also looking at the scheme. You know what I mean? So in the past couple of years, they're looking at it like, how many touches am I going to get? Am I going to, So there's definitely something to be said there. So, if Chip Kelly kind of changes the offense a little bit and it becomes more balanced, then, the situation with Jordan Marshall, he might have said, I'm going to stay in state and I'm going to go to Ohio State.
Well, Hummus, thank you for saying he's a good recruiter, because a lot of your fan base is what me and John are talking about is a lot of your fan base is upset and mad about this, and they're finding a way to cope with it. So instead of just saying that he's actually a pretty good coach, they're saying, oh, he's mid. We didn't need him anyways. He's just mid. My question is, if you're a mid coach and you're not that great, why did you last 9 years at Ohio State? That's my question. If he's such a bad coach, I don't understand that.
Right.
I don't think that, like I said, I don't think that, well, first of all, I don't think that running backs coach I don't think it's the hardest position to coach. Like, I just don't. I think that O-line, defensive backs, things where you have to teach a lot of technique. I mean, running back itself is very instinctual. Yeah, there's things that you learn. There's things that can be pointed out, but you're coaching, first of all, you're coaching one guy on the field at one point. You're not coaching an entire unit like a secondary coach or offensive line coach would be. You know what I mean? So right there, makes it a little bit easier. I think a lot of it really is about recruiting, and yeah, sure, development's there, but a lot of that also, is strength and conditioning. I think I think it's a little bit overstated how much impact a running backs coach does. It's just like the running back, how we see them devalued in the NFL. It's because in reality, a lot of it's plug and play. And if the player's plug and play, then the coach can be too. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's just the truth. So now, what you're saying though, Moose, I think that a lot of Ohio State fans are really upset by this. And I think they're not as upset for the reason that you think. It's not that this is this massive blow to Ohio State in terms of losing this elite coach, which, like I said, I think Alford's probably a pretty good coach. I never coached football, so I don't really know. But I think he's probably a pretty good coach because he did stick around for 9 years, as you stated. And he's a pretty good recruiter. You know what I mean? He might not be Brian Hartline, but he's a pretty good recruiter. But I think what's pissed Ohio State fans off is that he went to Michigan. That's what's pissed Ohio State fans off.
That's what I was going to say. And I really can't blame Ohio State fans for being pissed. I mean, because if the shoe was on the other foot and Mike Hart ended up leaving Michigan to go, I'd be pretty pissed off too if Mike Hart went to Ohio State.
But my question to you guys is, do you honestly think that this is an upgrade? Do you think that getting Tony Alford to replace Mike Hart is an upgrade? Because in my opinion, I don't think it is. I think that if anything, if you're looking at development and you want to stay the stuff that a lot of Michigan fans have said over and over in the past couple of years, which is true, development, look at who Mike Hart recruited and look at the production that he had. What was Hassan Haskins' rating? Was it what Travion Henderson's was? No, look at his season in 2021. Like, I think Mike Hart was probably the better coach. That's just my honest opinion.
Mine Williams was a 3-star, and as far as I recall, he put up some decent numbers, especially when Travion Henderson was injured.
Yeah, he put up decent numbers, but he didn't like run wild all over Michigan like Haskins did against Ohio State in 2021. I mean, Mayan Williams is a decent back, and he's a good short yardage back, but Blake Corum and Hassan Haskins, neither one of them were like super elite recruits, I don't believe, were they? I mean, they were maybe like top 150 guys, but they weren't like, they weren't Trey Henderson or, J.K. Dobbins was like a top 50-ish guy, so I mean, I don't know. Those guys are kind of can't miss most of the time.
I think from a recruiting standpoint, I think Alford is a better fit than Hart is. Hart might be able to pick out, he might be able to pick out diamonds in the rough more. I don't know. I don't know fully about that, but I think from a recruiting standpoint, I think Alford is better than Hart. I do think so.
Yeah. I mean,
just real quick, we're gonna make a quick swap. So Moose has been on with us for a while. Moose, thank you so much for being part of this dialogue. And then we're about to bring on one of our special guests here in a second. But really appreciate you, Moose, and go Blue.
No problem, John. Thanks for having me on. Go Blue.
See you, Moose.
And Hummus, bear with me as I bring on TJ Konarski from Ronin Sports Talk, who's been a regular guest for us. Looks like we're having some circular, but we'll see if that goes okay. Well, while he pops in and pops out, yeah, I think you've got a point. I think that they both have strength, so I would say that Tony Alford's primary strength is definitely more on the recruiting side than Mike Hart. We've pointed out some of the stats, like 9 top 200 running backs versus 1. We've pointed out the 247 list. From a recruiting perspective, I think Alford has the edge. From a coaching perspective, I would give the edge to Mike Hart based on what I've seen. The fact that he's been able to convert linebackers and other position groups to running backs, that's a special talent that not a lot of running backs coaches can do. Yeah. And so I'm going to give him as we did last night as well. I'm going to give him his flowers there.
Yeah, I think it's a nuanced discussion or debate when you start talking about this kind of stuff. I really do. So that's why I don't. I'm not going to make an absolute statement one way or another. So maybe I kind of did fly off the handle saying that it's a downgrade or that it's not an upgrade at any rate, because time will tell. But I do think it's a fairly nuanced discussion. I think that where you're recruiting to, so I think the proof will be, does Alford continue to recruit at the level that he did at Ohio State when he's at Michigan, when Ohio State is known to recruit rather basically across the board? You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens there. And then also, there's always going to be factors that you can't exactly predict here. So like Michigan losing the strength and conditioning coach, which has an impact on every player on the field, as we all know. You know what I mean? That's a very important thing. So you can't say how much is dependent. I mean, you could see a sizable drop off in certain positions that are required to have that flexibility and those things. And running back's a very injury prone position, and people have complained about that with Mickey Marotti actually at Ohio State, that he's doing a good job of getting their bodies ready, but they're not flexible and limber enough, is what some people have said, and that's why we're seeing so many injuries. And then people also blame the turf, slip-proof turf or whatever.
I did hear about that. Yeah. There's and that can be a really legitimate factor too. Like people need to understand that's not a small thing. That's you can get into some serious injuries, and even in the NFL level, there have been some serious injuries with turf and with the wrong, incorrectly configured in some of the maybe not so nice stadiums that are still going.
Yeah, it's this one, I can't remember what it's called. It's this one specific type of turf, and I think that they actually have banned it now. But Ohio State had just put it in. They had just replaced the existing turf like a few years back, and then I believe they banned it, and now I don't know if everybody had to rip it up, but I know that it's not allowed to be installed anymore. So,
well,
I think that's a discussion to be had where you see this. Do we still continue to see some of these position groups at a place like Michigan without the strength coach continue to kind of exceed their recruiting profiles? Because I think the strength coach is really undervalued. It's an undervalued part of the team. Like it really is.
Absolutely. Marotti and Ben Herbert, and I from all accounts, Justin Tress has been continuing a lot of the practices, kind of keeping it in the family, so to speak. Also keeping the nutrition director was a huge thing, because that was a consideration of where she was going to go, if she was going to go with Harbaugh or not. So yeah, nutrition director, another big one. So I think those things will help. I do want to bring on, I know NBA fans been chomping at the bit here. So we do want to let NBA fan on. NBA fan, thanks for calling in.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Absolutely.
Hey man, how's it going?
It's good. We're doing a little emergency stream here for the Tony Alford hire.
Yeah, I hear that. So yeah, I think you guys hit on a lot of good topics here to start off that I kind of wanted to talk about. But going to sort of the claim that I heard you guys making earlier on about this being like a home run hire and things like that. Is that am I getting you right in terms of what you said?
Yes, I'm happy to review the 5 reasons why if you'd like, because we probably have some people that weren't on in the beginning.
Okay, yeah, I think I missed those 5 points. If you could kind of go through those a little bit.
Yeah, it's totally okay. Actually, I might have accidentally deleted. Oh, there it is. So number 1, I think Alford from a recruiting perspective is an upgrade. We showed you the 247 list of primary and secondary recruits that he was responsible for either directly or as a secondary. 9 top 200 running backs versus Mike Hart's 1. That was reason number 1. Reason number 2 is that Alford knows Ohio State's recruiting, what they do for recruiting, what they do for NIL. He can navigate the conversations and some of our other coaches can't, right? Wink Martindale isn't going to be able to navigate those conversations at first like Alford can, because he had to go head-to-head against Miami. He had to go head-to-head against Alabama, Georgia, and have the conversations of, how much am I getting paid? What's in it for me? Well, he's able to navigate that not just by saying you ain't getting paid, but by how you can get paid. Because we know that Ohio State has NIL practices in place where, that they do have some sponsorship deals. They do have some things in place for recruits. Michigan's still playing catch up there, but most other schools at the top level have NIL in place. They have like minimum amounts for players or things like that. So Alford knows how to address those, not just from a, you're just going to, if you do great on the field, you'll get paid like we used to do. He knows how to navigate it at the next level and actually address it in a way where it's not just a go pound sand, but, here's what we could potentially look at for you.
Okay.
I'll actually stop there because I think that's a pretty notable one.
So in regards to the first point that you mentioned in terms of him having recruited 9 top 100 running backs juxtaposed to Mike Hart's 100, I think when we take into account the landscape that's always shifting, right? I don't know how many of those recruits would be relevant in regards to the context and in regards to what Michigan's recruiting against now. Right. A lot of them. And then if you look at the recruits that he's had in terms of the top 100s recently, a lot of them are not recent. So he's had Travion Henderson. He was his last last 5-star. But after that, none of them have been like, he's not on a recruiting high, right? You're not getting him when he's, at his max, essentially. Okay. And then when we look at like on-field production, you could argue, man, for like the past 3 to 4 years, I think everybody at Ohio State wouldn't even argue at the fact that Michigan's had the more ideal running back room. Right. So whatever was going on there, I don't know why you stopped what's flowing.
Well, because Mike Hart, for personal reasons, decided to leave the university, so we have no choice. So that's number 1. Number 2 is that if you're gonna look at a coach, we were talking last night about the Notre Dame running backs coach and the head coach of Marshall and some other people that were potentially in play, the Oklahoma running backs coach. But you can go and get your biggest rivals running backs coach, who also was associate head coach, by the way, not just running backs coach. Yeah. And the recruiting that he did was not just running backs. It was safeties. It was defensive tackles. It was interior offensive linemen. So the impact that he has on the university versus, let's face it, like he didn't just focus on running backs. And that's why Sharon Moore in his initial statement said that he was going to have an impact on the entire football program. in addition to running backs. He specifically said the football program, and I think that's alluding to the variety of position groups that he was able to recruit.
And I agree with that. And I'm a fan of Tony Alford personally. I do think that I'm not going to say it's a loss. I don't think tangibly it'll have much of an effect on the product either way this coming season. But he's for sure quality coach.
I have to correct myself. Sorry, assistant head coach. Yes,
right.
Yes, that changes my point.
I think Ryan Day also gave Larry Johnson a similar title. But yeah, I think he's an overqualified coach at this point who definitely is looking to expand his wings and have more responsibility. Another point that I wanted to address was, I don't know if it was you or the other gentleman who was a Michigan fan who brought up why he was on the roster 9 years if he was in Ohio. Why was he on the roster 9 years as an Ohio State coach if he was mediocre?
Right.
So
5 years at Notre Dame. Yeah.
Right. So I start off by saying he's obviously not mediocre, but to the point of why he wasn't elite either for a lot of his time at Ohio State. And I think a reason why he could stay on the staff was just because Ryan Day at certain points was pretty hesitant to make changes that needed to be made on Ohio State's coaching roster. You saw how long he kept what was his name? Rutgers coach now. Greg Schiano. He kept Greg Schiano a little longer than he needed to be there. He kept Kerry Combs a little longer than he needed to be there. So when he had those like glaring issues on his roster or his coaching staff, and he made those late, right? It kind of leaves room for a person who's not. You hear me?
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. My earbud just cut out, but
yeah, I could tell you had some. Yeah.
Hello?
Yep, I hear you.
Right. So it leaves room for a person who's not elite, but he's not horrible to be on the roster. So just based off of, Ryan Day being new to the adjustment of being a head coach and having all that added responsibility that he wasn't necessarily used to or comfortable or wielding, that made it to where he wasn't on his A game as he was earlier in his career, and he was able to stay on the staff.
Yeah. If I could interject for a second too, I'm not going to make a point that Tony Alford was kept for this reason or not, but if you were trying to validate that point, you could definitely point at Parker Fleming and Corey Dennis, both, who a lot of people just feel like were dead weight. And the thing with Corey Dennis is he's Urban's son-in-law. So a lot of people thought that was kind of just a hard thing to move away from, but they got rid of both of them this year. So a lot of changes have been made. So, and I'm not saying that's why Alford was retained or, I don't know if that's true or not. You'd have to be Ryan Day to actually know that. It's all conjecture. But, one point that can be made is that Tony Alford could be a pretty good coach and not absolutely elite and still keep his job. I mean, anybody who's worked at a place knows there's people who you'll work with and they're okay at their job, but they could clearly be better. But they're not getting fired because they're doing just enough or, better than average. And at a place like Ohio State, when the expectations are to win national titles and to have the all Big Ten running back, just enough or better than average isn't good enough. You know what I mean? And so I think that's why a lot of people have pointed to Tony Alford as, because within Ohio State circles, people have been saying that Alford needs to go. That's the thing. And he didn't receive an extension when almost everybody else who is really valued on the coaching roster did receive extensions. And I'm assuming that might have been partially why he went ahead and left. Maybe felt devalued. Like, you're going to give everybody else an extension and I'm just going to be sitting here treading water, then I'll go ahead and leave.
No, but unlike some, you did call in, and we had a good and when people call in, we really do try to have a decent conversation and try to have a good back and forth regardless. So appreciate. I'm gonna mark you just like I do with Sean as one of our reasonable Buckeyes on the Voice of College Football and Michigan channel.
Yeah. No, I'm typically reasonable as long as we're not talking about Disney and CFP conspiracies and stuff like that. That, as the real MVP knows, I'm very unreasonable there. But
Yeah.
all right,
Well,
John.
absolutely. Well, absolutely.
Thanks, man. I'll talk to you later, man.
Bye, hummus. All right. So we have time for maybe one more call. For those of you just joining us, the entire story today has been for our emergency episode of Michigan Wolverines Live that Michigan has hired running backs coach and assistant head coach of the offense. Let me use the correct terminology. Assistant head coach of the offense and running backs coach Tony Alford from Ohio State. The reasons why this is massive for Michigan: huge upgrade as a recruiter. We showed you the 247 list from top to bottom, not just for running backs, but for safeties, for interior offensive linemen, for wide receivers. He was a primary or secondary recruiter for a lot of the talent, that produced on the field. And yes, talent that fizzled, as happens at every program. Number two, Alford knows Ohio State's recruiting, NIL moves in the era 2024, where, as Nick Saban pointed out, it's all about how much can I make and how much, what can I get? Alford knows how to navigate that at a higher level than some of our coaches, given, the fact that they've had to battle with money against Miami, against Kentucky, against some of these programs. And yes, he knows the schemes. Are we going to use a lot of that? Probably not, because honestly, we've been out scheming them anyway. But there may be one or two things that we may want to flip, and other inside information. And I do think that that's something, as Madison did with Ohio State. And then, Don Brown's idiot self didn't change any of the signals and didn't change any of what he did because he was stubborn. So then 2019 happened, giant blowout. And then, of course, Nick Saban most recently just did this with our linebackers coach to get an edge for the Rose Bowl. Adds more Texas and Florida pipeline, has great relationships in both of those areas. And finally, this move shows how far the Michigan program has come and what Sharon Moore is prepared to do to not just go 8-4, not just win a natty and then go 8-4, but to continue to win at a high level from here on out. We have a caller. It looks like another Ohio State caller, potentially, King. So we've had some real Buckeye representation on Michigan Wolverines Live tonight.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm probably the best one though.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's fair.
They know.
Okay,
they know me. Everybody know me on social media, so this should be fun.
well, what's your take on the news today?
I said this earlier. I honestly don't get. I mean, I guess I understand from the standpoint of, you know what I mean, you go into your enemy, you go into your rival. So I can see the portrayal aspect from a lot of fans, from our fan base, but I honestly don't get the beef with this one. I mean, nobody was complaining when Ryan Day was handing out all them damn contract extensions and Tony Alford didn't get one. Nobody said a damn word. Want to know why? Because you didn't care. So why do you care now? He cut his salary and gave him a 1-year deal. What did you expect the man to do? Everybody knew that Tony Alford was on the damn chopping block. What did you expect him to do? Just take it? I mean, just allow that to happen? I mean, if
Right.
you wanted the dude, you would have acted like it. And that's the part that really disappointed me about today. I get that you're mad because, he jumped over enemy lines. And I understand that. I'm not knocking no Buckeye fan for that. But get the hell out of here acting like y'all really, really care. Because when he gave that contract extension to our D-line coach, to our DB's coach, Heartline got more money. everybody around got a extension or a raise except him.
So you just like in business, just like in anything,
come on.
when that happens, you look at your options.
Come on now. So what conversation are we really having here? Because like I said, I am all about following people's action. Words, people are going to say a lot of shit. You know what I mean? Welcome to America. Welcome to the earth. People are going to say a lot of stuff. But what are your actions? And your actions were, you didn't want him. So was he supposed to just take that? I really want an answer. I really do want an
Ohio
answer.
State fans, if you want to give him an answer, because I mean, I agree 100% with you. So the only thing I disagree, I heard you slip in a little, maybe he wasn't that great. Did you slip in a little? Maybe he wasn't the greatest running backs coach, or
no? I mean, that's a depending on who you talking to thing. You know, for me, Coach Alford, I got to shake his hand a couple of times at a couple of home games. Really cool. You know, seemed like a really cool dude. So, but for me, you know, obviously we all know the recruiting misses because, you know, around here, recruiting is king. You know, we love our stars. And he had a lot of misses. He had a lot. You know,
Jordan Marshall.
Yep. But the biggest one was Bijan Robinson. Oh, yeah. Coach Day was pissed at that one. The Bijan Robinson recruitment and the Mark Fletcher recruitment.
Who could blame him for being pissed? I mean, but it was Texas. You know, the thing with that one was you might have run into again an NIL situation.
Yeah,
because Texas is notoriously flush with cash with respect to recruiting.
That oil money, yeah, but you know, this. I said this on one of our spaces a while ago. I said Ohio State is the most arrogant recruiting team in the country. They're arrogant as hell. And what I mean by that is, okay, take the running back position, right? For the 2020, what is it, 4-5 class, we are after a kid named Jordan Davis from Mater Dei out in Cali, right?
Okay.
Cool. Number 1 running back in the class. That's fine. Whatever. But you have 2 studs in your backyard in Marquise Davis and Bo Jackson. You know, you've been down this road enough times to know that when you go national and you go after these highly ranked number 1, number 2 overall kids at their positions, you know typically how these conversations are going to go, especially with the linemen. So when I say that Ohio State is arrogant, they want what they want. And they are willing to play games that just flat out we just should not be willing to play. And with that Jordan Davis recruitment, you know that 80% of that is NIL. 80% of it. 80% of it is NIL led. And why do that when you have 2 studs that you can literally take right now in your back damn yard? It's arrogance. It's arrogance. Take those kids and move the hell on. Take them. Why are you playing these games? I'll give you another example. Last year with Brandon Baker, the kid, the tackle who went to Texas. Right? Now I know I'm gonna get roasted for this, but I was a huge fan of Luke Hamilton.
Yeah.
I like Luke Hamilton.
Yeah.
How in the hell don't you offer that kid?
We talked about it on the show.
I mean,
I don't know. Great question.
You know how these recruitments are going to go. Why are you playing these games? Take the kid that's in your backyard and be done. Develop them. I don't
see here's an Ohio State fan who's exactly proving your point.
Yeah.
Drop that bag. Ohio State only needs the best.
Oh shit. Yeah.
So Luke Hamilton, he was crap, I guess.
Yeah. It's you know, and don't get me wrong, I understand it because I made a lot of videos making fun of fucking Miami. I cannot stand them. I cannot stand them. But
with the money, Scott and the money.
Come on now. We all know what's going on. But at the end of the day, I had to relook at the situation and call it for what it is. This is the world we live in nowadays, y'all. It is what it is.